Hello, CM World. Welcome to Beyond the Chat, where we introduce you to some really phenomenal, some of the greatest marketers I know, and that would be the guest of our weekly Twitter chat. If you are joining us and you have come over from the wonderful CM World Twitter chat that we had today, thank you so much. And if you're new, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Monina Wagner. I am the community manager for the Content Marketing Institute. If you are not familiar with us, CMI's mission is to advance the practice of content marketing. We do that with our blog, with our weekly Twitter chats, live streams like this, our events, Content Tech Summit, and Content Marketing World. And we are just so happy to have you here and as a part of our community. Today, our guest is Amy Balliett. I am so excited to have her on. I don't know if we've met ever in person. However, we've gotten to talk to each other virtually. And of course, we are always on Twitter. So I'm always able to sneak in a hello that way. Amy is CEO and founder of Killer Visual Strategies. Very cool name. She is also author of a book also called Killer Visual Strategies. Amy's no stranger to the CM World community. She has spoken at Content Marketing World. She is a frequent visitor on our CM World chats. I am so excited for all of you to get to know Amy better. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I love seeing your background. We have the sun here out in Cleveland. It's spring. I love that you're outside. I feel like this is fantastic weather. It really it's spring. It energizes you.
Oh, it's amazing. You got to get out, especially during COVID. It's so nice to just get out of the house.
Absolutely. Well, we just came out of a Twitter chat on interactive visual content, which was fast paced and it was so insightful. But I don't think a lot of people know is that you came from a background that's from a different visual medium, and that would be film. And you had a very interesting instructor, I hear, in college. So why don't you tell us about really what made you interested in film, and maybe how film kind of morphed into your interest and your love of other visual content?
Yeah, definitely. The reason I went to film school was because I spent so much of my life just seeing the world through visual stories. Anything that would happen to me, I would kind of reframe it from a third person perspective and think about the video angles that there might be, the camera angles. And I just fell so in love with what you could do through film, how a different angle could bring a different message to an audience. Like Hitchcock was so good at taking the medium of film and displaying such subtle information through his visual choices and his cuts and his edits that he didn't have to put certain information in his scripts. Instead, he would subtly just build so much tension through his visual choices and the way in which he would light a scene or edit a scene. And so I really fell in love with that and wanted to do that. And so I went to film school. And I went to film school originally at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio, but they were still focused on original film, and it was 2001. I wanted to move digital, and it just so happened that Cleveland State University was doing an experimental film program. I'm from Cleveland. I wanted to head right back to Cleveland and go to CSU, and the experimental film program had brought in some of the best teachers ever. Basically, it was Spike Lee's film crew. So I got the opportunity to learn about film through the director of photography for myriad Spike Lee films, the head of sound for myriad Spike Lee films. And there were one or two times where my professor was able to at least bring him in on some calls as well. And so we ended up just learning from some exceptionally talented people who also had roots in Cleveland, which was really cool because I don't think people realize the independent film scene that Cleveland has, but it was booming back in the early 2000s, and it's just booming so much more now. So yeah, I really just loved everything about film and visual storytelling, and also minored in marketing. And then somehow my life turned into one as a marketer, where I then found that visual storytelling is one of the best forms of marketing. So I kind of married my two passions.
Well, so let's talk about that. So, with the background that you have in film and visual storytelling, but also now as a marketer, how was the transition going from visual background to writing a book? Were there challenges even as a marketer creating content all the time? Were there challenges that you didn't expect? Was it all, I would love to say it was all roses. Was it smooth sailing going to authoring the book?
Oddly, for me, it actually was. But the reason is because if you think about all of the things that I'm really passionate about, storytelling's the foundation of it. And so one of the other reasons I got into film was because I loved writing scripts. I loved thinking about what a feature film might be or various stories I could tell. And so I wrote all the time. I loved writing, and originally thought I might just focus on writing as a career for a little bit. So when I sat down to write my book, I had 10 years worth of lessons that I wanted to share with people. I had had 10 years of just wanting to get this information out. And finally, because I had a publisher and a deadline, I had the drive to actually get it done. But I needed the publisher and the deadline to do that. And so, yeah, I basically just really focused on rolling up my sleeves and getting it done. I wrote the book in about 2.5 months. So it was fun. It was actually one of the most fun things I've done. So I'm working on another book right now, and I hope to write a good 10 more books over the next few years.
Well, on the chat, we had talked about, is there still a place for text-based content with the rise that we're seeing and the popularity we're seeing with visual content? But let's take that debate, let's take it to a different debate. And is it long form or short form visual content? We had a lot talking about video and we were talking about infographics. So, end the debate for us right now.
The answer is simple. It's short form at the top of the funnel, long form at the bottom of the funnel. Short form content brings people into the funnel. The more they learn about you, the more they want to dive deeper into long form content. But never try to bring somebody into the top of the funnel with long form content. It won't work.
So, knowing that, where do you think the future of visual content is going? So we're seeing a lot of live streaming, is it long form? Is it short form? What are we looking at when you think about, where we'll be in 5 years, where we'll be in 10 years?
Our attention spans keep going down. So the fact is the more we start to integrate with visuals in real life, in augmented reality, in jumping into more immersive virtual reality as well, our attention spans are actually probably going to go down more, and our demand for visual content is going to go up much higher. The reason visuals are so important is because of our short attention span right now. 91% of audiences demand visual content as their primary, secondary, and tertiary form of information delivery from the brands that connect with them. And that is because it gets to the brain 60,000 times faster than any other form of communication that exists. So when you have a short attention span, you do want visual content to hook you. And I think short form visual content is going to be what hooks people. It's going to get shorter and shorter. Hopefully it doesn't get so short that it stops being valuable. We still have to deliver value with the content that we put out there, but you can do that in 15 seconds or less. And so it's important to identify, what works in 15 seconds, a good animated GIF. If you got 30 seconds, then you can do something like a motion graphic, or you can do more of a static image in 30 seconds. So you really have to consider just the attention span of your audience on the channel that they're looking at and deliver content that fits that exact time-based attention span. But 5 years from now, shorter is going to be more in demand than it already is.
Well, so no matter how short, 15, 30 seconds, whatever we're looking at, do you think we hear a lot about fatigue, hear a lot about information overload? Do you think that plays into that at all?
I think it's driving it, actually. When you think about information overload, it's the fact that we have just so much content at our disposal. And the reason we demand visual content today is because of that. It's because we don't have the time to read everything in front of us. We're craving and begging for ways to get that information faster, to get that information easier. That's why animated video is still one of the most popular forms of connecting with somebody and marketing to people, because it spoon feeds information to us. And so we want passive information delivery. That's where visual content really, really has its value. So I think information overload is not visual content isn't going to fatigue us. Visual content is the answer to the problem. Visual content is what energizes our already fatigued psyche.
Well, before we move on to my final question, I wanted to say hello to some people who are watching right now. Christoph Trapp is here. Christoph says he wants to be sitting outside just like you. I have to agree with him. And Andy, who was actually on our Twitter chat, welcome Andy. She says creating short form content that is valuable is a lot harder than long form. You're nodding. You're nodding. Why are you nodding, Amy?
Oh, it's so true. It is so hard to pack so much information into even 60 seconds or less. And that's often why brands don't actually produce homepage explainer videos, because they don't think that they can possibly explain the value of their product or service in such a short amount of time. But you get the right talent, you get the right team together, it can be done. But it is much harder. It's much harder than long form content, because it's hard to be very succinct with your points and really focus on your very primary key differentiators.
Well, one of the reasons why we started Beyond the Chat is because an hour was never enough time for us to get to know you. So we love being able to bring you in. And that means I have one more question. We call it question 8. And my question to you is, Amy, if you're a CEO, you're busy, which would you rather watch? Are we talking Netflix or are we talking YouTube?
Netflix. Netflix, because man, they know me really well. I'm happy they collect my data and use their algorithm to push the best bingeable content ever to me.
What is the last thing you've binged?
The One. It just came out last week. It's basically kind of a series that feels very Black Mirror-ish, but focuses on one long story as opposed to each episode being a different story. Very interesting one.
Well, I will have to take a look at that. Amy, I am so happy that you were able to spend some time with us. Thank you so much. Will you tell everyone where they can find you online and also where they can find the book?
Definitely. You can find me at Amy Balliett on Twitter. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm actually more active on LinkedIn in the sense that I'll email back and forth and connect with you that way very easily. And then you can buy the book on Amazon.com. It's Killer Visual Strategies on Amazon. It was 2020's or one of 2020's best marketing and sales books of the year.
Great. Amy, thank you again. And thank you to all of you out there watching. We will be back next week. Until then,